Past 3, good to have you with us on today on eNCA. Solar panels, it's a good idea. They're expensive. They can change your world, and they've certainly become a feature over the past few years. Of course, many South African households looking to try and put in some kind of measure of self-sufficiency when it comes to energy. So how can you be smart, though, when shifting over to solar power? Because there's so many different versions. There's now so many different companies getting involved as well. I'm joined by Dr. Karen Surridge from the South African National Energy Development Institute. Dr. Surridge, good to have you with us. And this is the problem. There's now too much information. It was pretty niche a few years ago. Now we're being flooded with all those who say they know how to put in solar and telling us what solar to go for. What do you make of the over-information we're dealing with?
Afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. There's a lot of information out there. I get asked a lot of questions all the time saying, well, there's so much information. I sort of feel overwhelmed. Who do I ask to do installations? Will the installations be good? What kind of hardware should I be using? There's always all this information available, but one doesn't always know how to make the smart choice from all of that information. So we at SANEDI, the South African National Energy Development Institute, amongst other things, we strive to get information out there that supports the energy sector and energy security in the space, which of course at the moment, with where we're sitting with load shedding and so forth, is definitely a priority for most households.
Yeah, it certainly is as well. The problem is, Doctor, it's still a very, very expensive investment. Many people using access bonds, taking out loans, using credit cards, etc. But it's just to try and get some power back into their own household. But now we've had in the past a couple of months, and it seems to be getting worse, now we have bogus installers. They look legit, their websites look right, they seem to have the right certification, but then these solar panels start going up in flames, these batteries start dying quicker than they should. How does the average idiot like me know the difference?
Well, firstly, I don't think anyone's the average idiot. It's just a matter of being able to know what it is that you're going to pay for. So my first step out of the box is it's actually always good to go word of mouth. There's enough of these installations out there that you must know somebody at work or a friend who's had something done. So if you already know that there's a good installer out there, word of mouth is always the best advertisement. However, if you're looking for a specific installer, there is a website called the PV Green Card website, where you can go online and you can look for an installer who is accredited, who uses accredited hardware, and would then be supported in terms of you being able to have comeback if something were to go wrong with the system. On the other hand, what I always say to people is when you ask for the quote, ask for a detailed quote that outlines exactly what it is that you're going to be buying in terms of the hardware itself, the make of the manufacturer, and so forth. Then go and do your research. Google, find out, is the battery that I'm being quoted for, does it have a good reputation? Is it a good battery? How many cycles will it give me? Find out yourself, become an informed consumer. And that will help you to make the right decisions in terms of where to invest your money. We all have hard-earned money. We don't want to just go throwing it away on installations that may fail after a short time frame. So it's important to have this information, but it's also possible to not have to do a full installation all at once. So there are a couple of really quick, neat tricks of the trade, if I may share them, that will really help you to reduce costs on your system. So first step out of the box is always go energy efficient first. So get your house as energy efficient as you possibly can, and that way it reduces the amount of electricity that you're going to need to get from the PV that you're putting on the roof. So then you'll be buying a smaller system, it will cost less. The same with the required battery that you need for backup. And there's different types of batteries. So if you can't afford the very expensive ones, you can read up about which ones would also work on your system, which are more affordable.
When it comes to the, apart from the batteries, of course, now there's, and I want to try, and I'm sure there's many various versions, but I'm going to narrow it down to 3 different types of installations, 3 different kinds of power systems, Dr. Surridge. And right now we're in low stage 2 blackout. So I think some of us think it's not maybe so bad, but then we go back into stage 6 and we all start panicking. What are you recommending these days? On-grid, off-grid, or hybrid? I imagine each of those have a very significantly different price tag that goes with it.
In terms of putting in a system, one of the things that I always say to people is don't completely disconnect from the grid. It's not good for you and it's not good for the grid. So it's a good idea to still maintain your connection to the grid, still have the grid available to you. You will still probably require the grid to support your household, but you do need to make a plan to become more energy secure if it's what's required and you can't get through the load shedding cycles as we have them. If, say, for example, you have an essential service or something that requires electricity in the house at all times, then you need to make a plan for backup power. And there are a number of options that you can explore in that space. So essentially, you would remain attached to the grid, but you would have a means of supporting yourself when the grid is not available during cycles of load shedding. So I guess, would that be what you would have termed the hybrid option? Because you said off-grid, on-grid, or hybrid. Yeah, that would be the hybrid option that I would recommend, most definitely. And then, as I say, look to serve your need. So if there are only a few lights, maybe the TV and the Wi-Fi that you need at the time where load shedding normally hits you, then size your system to meet that need.
Yeah, it's not something you have to try and go and spend 300,000 Rand on if it's just you and your wife and the TV and some Wi-Fi and a couple of lights running in the background. Just as I say goodbye, though, as well, I think there's a lot of misconception as well, Doctor. Last question to you, that if you go for a full solar system, you can run your whole house. That's not technically correct, because if I understand the very basics of this, you don't want to be running systems like your geyser, your garage motor, your oven, all that sort of thing. It's not a get out of jail free card. It still has to be managed very carefully when you install it and when you use it, don't you?
Yes, most definitely. So these systems you have to, like I said, first step out of the box is energy efficient. Anything in your house that heats up or cools down, but particularly heats up, so the geyser, the kettle, the stove, the oven, anything like that, choose electricity. So you don't want that running off your battery system. It's going to drain your battery very quickly, and then you're going to end up having to put in a much bigger system. So what you want to do is go energy efficient and find out what your actual need is at the time when you would be load shedding. So let's say it's over a time when you'd be cooking supper. Then consider cooking on gas rather than trying to cook on electricity, because you're going to need a much larger solar system if you want to cook on electricity. So size your solar system to meet your basic needs that you have in the house, and whatever you can shift over to another technology, like, for example, a solar water heater instead of an electric geyser, or even a gas water heater, or cooking on gas, or heating your, like in winter, instead of having one of these bar heaters which chew electricity, rather go with a gas heater in the house. So anything that heats up or cools down, if you can get that off your electrical requirement of your house, right there, in any case, you'll be saving up to 60% of your electricity costs and consumption.
Yeah, and also you won't run through your batteries if you decide to go the solar route. I'll be honest, installed a gas stove rather successfully. I haven't blown the house up yet. The stove went in a couple of weeks ago, and it actually has been a huge difference. So if you do nothing else, just if you've got a family and you need to get dinner done, I'm in one of those areas I'm always out when dinner has to be cooked. So right now a gas stove is working for us. Fairly cheap alternative. Dr. Karen Surridge, what a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. South African National Energy Development Institute wanted to talk to the good doctor because there is so much information now. When it came out, it was pretty easy to understand what you wanted, but things have changed, times have changed, and solar has become a lot more complicated. So I'm glad that the doctor was able to make time for me this afternoon. My thanks to her.